Welcome in, everybody. You're listening to Wrestling Payments, a podcast where we help payment professionals contend with the challenges of modernizing their payments operations and identifying ways to build for the future. If you're interested in payments innovation and modernization, you're in the right place. Now, let's get into it.
Hey everyone, welcome to Wrestling Payments. Today we got a great episode. We're going to talk about a new product that solves a really important problem. The reason I sound a little odd, Sean Carter, who's joined me today, and Toli Amare. Sean Carter, president of NEACH and NPG. He's talked forever about the importance of data. You have to have data, analytics, you have to use the data. Today we have someone that proves him right, which is very uncomfortable for the rest of us. Do you want to just introduce yourself, say hi?
No. So thanks, Joe, for having me on Wrestling Payments. Very excited today. President and CEO of NEACH and NEACH Payments Group. And one of the things that NEACH needs to be healthy is that our financial institutions are healthy. And the way I've been saying for years that financial institutions can remain healthy is to make strong decisions. The best way to do that is to be able to have the data, which we know from talking with a lot of you, it's kind of all over the place, right? Which is good because you have a lot of it. The bad is that it's not always as easy to get as you would think, even though it's your data, right? And this is just an FI issue. I talk about this all the time at the NACHA level, where NACHA will say, we can't get certain information from the operators. And I'm like, it's your network. What are we talking about? You can't get information from the operators. So I'm very consistent on this issue of it's your data. You should be able to have it and get it, and then allows you to make informed decisions. So excited to have this conversation. Just quickly, how I met Toli is interesting as well. A lot of you don't know, I was kind of a train wreck when I first took over as CEO of NEACH, and I was lucky enough to be pushed to join Vistage, which is a CEO group, and Toli happens to be on my group. And we've had a chance to get to know each other a little. And if you guys are interested or impressed by intelligence, this is what we're talking about. Is Toli's mind just works differently. So I hope that comes across in this podcast. We'll try to tee him up with questions so that he can just shine, because he's a really bright individual.
And Toli, please.
Thank you, Sean, for those kind words. And on way of background, I started off my career a couple of years as an assistant bank auditor working with FDIC. Did a lot of the regional banks here in terms of bank examination. I decided that, being a bank auditor wasn't my calling in life. So I spent about 20 years in the investment and wealth management industry, focusing mostly on the analytics side of the business, right? Focusing on the operation, trading aspect. I built out the infrastructure, the core infrastructure for the investment banking firm that I work for. After leaving the investment industry, I decided, why don't just start something different, right? Why just do something totally out of the left field? So I bought into a water company, a water purification company, and knew nothing about the industry. But it really gave me a lot of insight onto how to run a company, right? From sales and marketing to running a book of business to managing, 20 or 30 people that are looking at you for key decisions. And that led me down to creating several other companies. And one of them is the company we're talking about right now, which is Predium.ai, which is a decision intelligence platform that really solves some of the data issue that Sean is talking about, right? It allows it's an active engine that allows executive to really test out decision before they even risk $1 capital into it at all.
Sorry, I have that moment where I become an audience member and I'm like, huh?
The genesis of our product really stems from another company that my partner and I started, Anjit, who's not on the call. But we have a consulting company that focus on helping, medium and small size business grow. And one of the challenges that we had was accessing the data, getting the data and quantifying in a manner that allows us to make insightful business decisions. And the problem with that is the crux of the problem, whether it's small business or banks that we work with, two problems that persist, right? One is data quality is an issue. And then the second is there are a bunch of siloed data living in disjointed systems that don't talk to each other, right? Now, one of the things that people really underestimate is the root cause of data quality. If you think about this, you have the perfect technology in place, but if you have messy data going in, It's garbage in and garbage out, right, on this end. One of our advisory board member, who is a former CFO of a regional bank, he actually did an audit of an institution around here. And what he did an audit of their core banking system. What he uncovered during that time was that bank had 4 deposit products in there. 400 deposit products on there. So what happened there was basically over the years of the banking operation, someone was just manually putting in these deposit product in there, whether it's a promotional product that they did over summer, but they keep on compounding over years and adding up, right? And if you think about it, if banks are doing merger and acquisition, they're just bringing more products in there. And so now the data just ballooning into this messy pile of data where it's impossible to do any analytics around the deposit portfolio. The other challenge that I see outside of just the data quality I mentioned is the fragment data living across several different systems. So think about this, right? A simple question, an executive will walk into a board meeting and say, hey, who are most profitable clients, right? Understand? A very simple answer, but it's a very complex process for banks right now because all the data live in separate system. It's messy. So if you have data in your core system, you have your data in your loan origination, you have your data in your CRM, the simple answer of who's my most profitable client becomes a week-long process versus something that they could, push out in a few minutes, right? So by the time they get the answer and the board needs to make the decision on it, the opportunity might have passed already, right? Or even worse, a competitor that's actually have a better process around data normalization, data duplication, has already got in and took that opportunity.
And Joe, this is where I got interested with Toli and Sanjeev when they were kind of explaining what they were doing. You think about this in your payments business, right? NEACH is payments and we love payments and trying to, there's a couple of key inflection points in your payment strategy, right? It's number one is what do we offer, right? But then, beyond that is kind of where should be focusing our time? What is the most profitable products we have? And the example that always comes to mind to me, and I love the whole ISO world and card processing, is a financial institution looking at businesses such as credit card or processing fees like that is coming from a totally different stream than maybe everything else they're offering. And so when somebody does ask a very straightforward question like, how are we doing? There's obviously an accounting answer to that. Anybody can look at a P&L and say, oh yeah, we're losing money, right? Or we're making money. But to Toli's point, there's deeper questions under that, right? And so even I think what happens on board discussions is sometimes they get stalled because everybody knows not to go any more deeper because you probably can't get the answer, right? And so the question becomes very basic, like, are we making money or not? When really what you're probably trying to get at is what's our most profitable segment? Like, where should we be focused next? Where are our threats, right? Like what industry, like if 80% of our revenue is from one industry and you see that big bank ABC that has specialization in that industry is coming to your area, that's a bigger threat than if it was a different bank coming into your network. And what Toli showed me, and we've actually gone out to some member institutions and talked about this, and he's done some demos, and what it allows you to do is really get at that inflection point to say, we need to know from this system and this system in order to change pricing. But the beauty, Joe, this is what you would love, because anyone that if you ever watch NEACH operate, I am like so quick to make decisions, and Joe's like, whoa, we just have to take a little more time to decide. Joe's that secondary, well, what if this happens? Which totally brain works the same way. What if we did change pricing? Before making that decision, this tool allows you to say, what does that make my income look like over the next couple of years? What if the interest rates change? How does that impact this decision I'm about to make over here? And if you don't have all your data, let's say you have 67% of your data, you're getting 67% of the decision, right? It's an amazing, I didn't understand what they were doing at first, but when he put it into banking terms, because he has the background, I'm like, this is perfect. I know other systems exist. However, some of those are provided by the same provider that doesn't allow you to have all your data. So somebody listening to this may say, oh yeah, we already have that tool. Pause before you say that 100%, because if it's the person that's limiting your access now to what you can see, if it's their tool, it's also not seeing those other things that may live outside. And when we talk about payments, in fintech and how much revenue you want to drive, it's really important to see all of that because Joe, you and I get to see this all the time. Some people are skittish about fintech relationships, even though they can be very lucrative, right? Because the regulators they want to see a bigger program. There's all kinds of risks. So if you're not giving everybody the full information on the board about what these relationships are really looking like, and all they're saying is the increased headaches that the relationships are bringing, or employees are saying, hey, this is too much to deal with. We've seen this in the third party center space. People exit the business and they're giving up a lot of opportunity sometimes because they're not seeing the full picture. This process that Toli talks about with the data just allows you to do that at a board, at executive level. And I even talked to them about this could be within a department for your treasury people to kind of look at pricing and things that they want to do. So it's a fascinating journey, but it all starts from that simple premise of it's your data.
Yeah,
You should be able to see it all, and it doesn't always work like that.
I actually think you brought up a good point. A lot of this could be solved if you have the capital resources to just throw money at it, right? I think Big Bank has that, right? They are at a hugely competitive advantage. Not only do they have the money to throw a implementation like a Snowflake or build out a data department, right? Or even hire the best talent. Community banks don't have that, right? They're very constrained by, the budget, and any talent that they might have difficulty retaining them, right? Because, a fancy fintech companies come in, a bigger bank could double the salaries and you're gone. Where I think Predium comes in, it levels the playing field for them, right? In this case is that it allows community bank the same type of solution where they'll have access to clean data. And also one thing that I think that gives us a really competitive advantage is that not only do we provide the best, what I think is one of the premier technology, is that we also provide a financial analytical expertise that will come in and help you use the technology. So think about this. It's like not only you're buying a fancy sport car, you're getting a excellent driver to drive that fancy sport car. It's not we're asking you to drive this fancy sport car. We're doing the driving for you.
I have an objection, an observation, and a question. So my objection, it's not really an objection. The ACH is 50 years old. Lots of times they've built systems on top of systems on top of systems on top of systems. So walking into a bank and saying, oh, can you pull this report? No, we can't do that. So I just want to defend my community bankers saying, sometimes it's hard. The observation that core, the root cause problem. If I'm listening to this podcast right now, how do I know that this solution solves my problem? Maybe because I haven't actually scoped out my problem enough. What problem? How do I know that I can put the connection together that I should be looking at Predium? This would help me solve that problem. Do you have examples of how you came in and solved a problem?
Yeah, well, I'll give you an example, but I think let's take a step back. What makes Predium different from other platforms? I think Predium itself, the software itself is top notch. But I don't think the technology is the one that sets us apart. Where I really think that sets us apart is the financial analytical analyst that comes in along with it. Our analysts understand banking, right? They understand what's the difference between a loan attributes and deposit attributes and how to look at raw banking data and say, you know what, that data is good, that data is bad. They could understand it and they speak the language of that. And I think that's a huge competitive advantage. And a competitive advantage that most other companies don't have is that they only provide you a tool, but the tool is only good and useful as what decision being made, right? And those decisions are being made by the executive, which are being, with the assistance of our analysts, we're providing that resource. Again, remember, community banking are limited on resources based on pricing pressures. Having something like this is a key competitive advantage that only bigger banks have. So one example I could provide is, it is less working directly with a bank, but working with a consultant. So we were talking to a consultant that did a lot of merger and acquisition. And because of the environment we're in, banking got to look for different ways to improve economy of scales. And a lot of the option right now on the table is merger and acquisition. The problem that this consultant was having is they had a pool of potential partners to merge with. They could simply, combine the balance sheet and know what the pre and post balance sheet looks like. Where they had trouble was what does that balance sheet look like after a few scenarios, right? Different multiple scenarios. So we were able to provide her with a analysis and say, hey, if you were to merge with XYZ bank right here, here's what your post balance sheet income statement look like. But by the way, here's what it looks like under this scenario where there's a deposit run, or here's how it affects your capital ratio or liquidity ratio. And then really it helps her really come down to looking at the partner to provide not only just the most profitable, but the profit at the best risk-adjusted return level as well. And that analysis, what she mentioned, took a month, right? We were able to do that in a much faster time frame than what she could able to do it. And a lot of that is because we're able to pull in the data, normalize it, data's clean. We could access the data pretty quickly.
That's amazing. I didn't see where, that zipped at the end. Not only were you examining her options, you said, oh, and here's 2 other options. Very, very interesting. So I am an AI fanboy. How does, every day I go in and they talk about this new SaaS service. Look, you can build it in 10 hours. How do you, how are you different than that? Can I go over on the weekend and me and Sean go in my garage and build this solution?
The answer to that is yes and no, right? Yeah.
I said yes.
I think we had this question before, right? They say, hey, let's, we could dump this data in Cloud and Cloud will do it, right? But the problem there is Cloud is not a database, right? And nor, like I said, Cloud will only kick out data that they fix, right? So you will need the expert. And I think this really is it. Like our competitive advantage is that we have that data analyst that's an expert, right? To understand what the output means. And does that output make sense at all? So, for someone that don't have the level of expertise, or even if you have the level of expertise to it, right? How are you going to manage data? How are you going to normalize it, right? That's where the tool comes in, the software tools, and also the data analyst comes in as well. So, like I said, you can do it, but you'll run the same problem as you're trying to do it manually right now through Excel spreadsheet. Yeah, I understand.
And Joe, so I don't know if I fully explained to Toli the whole tie-in to wrestling payments. We do wrestling like WWE. I'm gonna blindside you, Toli. Like when the guy comes out of the back and the announcers go crazy and say, "Oh, he's turning heel," or one of the things that our industry, our members are dealing with right now is this issue of fraud. I mean, there's a lot of. I was just reading something somebody posted from the Connecticut bankers event that was going on that there's been $20 billion lost, and just from and that's only reported, right? What people are comfortable reporting. When you and I were at that bank in Connecticut chatting, right? One of the scenarios I joked about was that, when we look at the profitability of a customer, some people have like a tracking system for fraud that's outside of everything else, right? Where with your application, we could take all that fraud tracking into consideration when we actually look at the profitability of a customer. Because one of my big complaints, and I know I get in trouble for saying this, is that sometimes exiting the relationship, because over here it looks like it's a very profitable customer, but some of the other systems are showing you that you've had to take 2 insurance claims. It's driven up your cost of insurance because having this customer, they keep having computer issues, and right, it's really hard to go to management without a real full data set to say, I think we should offboard this customer. And that's typically what happens. I think everybody in treasury management knows who the bad customer is. Everybody in ops knows who those customers are, but it's hard when you don't have a story using the data to be able to say offboarding this customer actually is a better result for us as an institution. Then we'll go get them trained, we'll wipe their machine, and because basically the behaviors aren't changing at the end user side. Can you just you confirm with me on like any data set can be sucked into? I mean, you could have a smart sheet with stuff that you're tracking. This isn't just about the weakness of cores not giving you all your data. This is anywhere.
Yeah.
In your environment that you're keeping information that should be used to make decisions.
I think one of the things that surprised me the most about learning about the bank industry is the lack of granularity of the data. So most banks look at the NIM at the bank-wide level, right? And looking at the bank-wide level just really allows you to compare, am I doing well or I'm doing poorly against my competitors or my peers. To your point, right? Our system allows us to go the next step down or even more, right? It allows you to take a look at what are the levers that are moving the profitability. In this case, look at client's ability, right? You look at your set of clients and you uncover, hey, you know what? these set of clients makes up 80% of our profitability, and we should really focus on them. Well, these set of clients where they have a lot of frauds, a lot of disruption, and they're not really profitable. By getting rid of this client, will actually could improve our overall efficiency and eventually profitability in the firm, right? On this end, from administrative costs, having to take care of them, having IT go back and forth on checking fraud alert, those costs goes away. And our system allows us to do that, to really look at not only just client profitability, you could, segment it down to product level, which product are most competitive, or most profitable in this case. You might be thinking that your CRE portfolio is doing well, but in reality, these subsets of CRE portfolios are not, right? So it might make more business sense to not even offer them at all as a product. The other thing, like I said, other segment we could do is branch profitability, right? If you're trying to think about community outreach and say, hey, I'm getting the return that I want for my community outreach program here. If I want to grow this branch by $50 million deposit, is it really worthwhile, right? And not only does our data show that, but we also do simulation and modeling around that. Not, hey, if we grow this by 50 million on this in this branch, what does that do to all our capital ratio, liquidity ratio? What happened if there's a run on the change in interest rate? What does that do? So our product allows us to do that type of analysis.
I have to admit I was confused. I think, and I like examples. So if you give me another example, that would be great. At the beginning, we kind of focused on, if we make a decision whether to do a merge or not. So I kind of thought this was a spot solution. But when Sean talked about fraud, I can use this ongoing. Can you give me an example of that? I was thinking, got a big decision. We're going to do a merger. We're going to change this system. Or we're going to find out this. But this is ongoing data.
The system is a live machine that gives you insights into your business real time, right? So we have part of our AI tool is as we're ingesting data in, the AI is looking for anomaly trends, right? In this case, go back to my data quality issue. It immediately will start highlighting any bad data quality that you're up in. So if you're missing a month, let's say you have customer data for 12 months and you're missing 1 month, it'll flag it right away. And then it'll look at trends. It'll look at trends and any metrics that you're putting in. If you look at profitability, like client profitability, you say, hey, your client profitability is trending upward because of this. This is the reason why. So it is not just a static analysis, narrow analysis. It's a live machine that's continuously looking at data and giving you insight before you could even look at it.
Excellent. You're walking along and like, okay, yeah, they're going to pull this software in to do a solution. And like, wait a minute, did he just say ongoing? Really interesting. Is there anything that we haven't asked? Any other features?
I think a lot of us are living real time the AI revolution, right? I think we're all fascinated with it. We benefit from it because we're offering an AI solution. But I think banking in a whole could definitely benefit from it. I think we're really just at the tip of where this is right now. I think where we are right now is what we're offering, which is business intelligence, allowing you to start seeing that right now, right? Bigger banks or even community bank are looking for products like ours where they're normalizing the data, gathering the data, making decisions faster, trying to make decisions faster and smarter, right? And I think that's where we are now. But I think going forward, the second phase of this AI revolution could be around augmenting what banks already know about the local economy, right? So AI could provide you quantitative data. What it can't provide you is the qualitative data. An executive or a banking relationship manager in a local economy, I know what the local economy is, right? I know the people. I know the ins and outs of the economy, right? I have my own biases. I have my own vision of it. What AI could do in this space is augment, right? It could either verify your opinion or give you flags or insight on something that you might be blind to. But really where I think AI will be in 5 years from now is, we're doing scenario modeling in terms of like, hey, when an executive want to make a strategic decision, right? When they're trying to make a big decision around something. I think in 5 years, it's going to be like what we were talking about, continuous optimization, continuous scenario modeling. So real time deposit comes in, there's machine running in the background that's looking at the data and analyzing and putting out possible scenarios of what the potential outcomes is. So it's constant feeding and optimizing the data set of the bank and giving information real time. I think that's where we're going to be. Right now, we're just at the beginning, the tip of it, where, hey, we have AI, we have a tool that allows us to do scenario model. Ultimately, it's going to be part of the platform where it's an AI assistant. As data being fed into the system, it's being optimized real time on it.
That I love. That's That's a vision. You're ahead of the game. Love it. Sean, anything else from you?
Yeah, no, just again from our perspective at NEACH, right? Like the healthier this banking segment is, right? I think it benefits. Like I'm a huge fan. When we wouldn't be at NEACH, Joe, you've been over here 35 years. I've been here almost 29 years. We just love our community banks, our credit unions, the smaller institutions. I see it on a personal level with our, we've had some merges where I live, and getting money for softball this year was 3 times harder than it used to be. We would walk into the local branch and say, "Hey, we need $500 for softball." No problem. Bang. They would do it. Now we're calling out of state to some district headquarters. And so the impact on community banks leaving and not doing well is really, it's a challenge for everybody, personally and professionally, for NEACH. And so one of the things that we're trying to drive through with all of the work we do at NEACH, whether it's, your fintech innovation series that's out right now, this is all about making FIs better. And obviously, we're not saying there's no other products out there that can help you make decisions. But what I was struck by with what he was talking about is this data assistant kind of, because one of the challenges we talked about on a group which has a bank CEO that's a members on our Vistage group as well, is sometimes there's a bench problem at institutions as people get poached. And as you're developing a leader, that's awesome, right? You're developing new leaders all the time. During development, decisions still need to be made that affect the future of the institution, and having something to support that as you're growing that person into the CFO role. And then they're going to be a key decision maker. But, in that 8 months, it may take them to get ready. There may need to be a decision, a buy, sell, or a new product, or offboarding a customer. And just having something there that can help in that. There's decisions that are made every day at institutions on pricing, or where do we close a branch? Where do we open a branch? Should we take on this relationship? Is it worth this customer? And that doesn't stop when you're building your bench up, right? You don't get a timeout, unfortunately. So this is what just struck me about my initial conversations with them is, they kind of understand the perils that our members are facing. But they also are more positive, right? You read a lot of stuff about the bleakness of this size institution, the sweet spot, the 500 million to 5 billion. What I was struck by is they're like, no, these guys shouldn't be worried. They can absolutely compete and win. And, but it just takes thinking differently and having the data. And, it kind of energized me a little bit, because you're like, you know what? You're right. There is no reason that someone, especially with all the technology that exists, right? The products are like a bill pay product's a bill pay product, right? ACH origination's ACH origination. RTP is offering RTP. Where things get different is probably at that decision-making level, and having more insight allows the Chases of the world to maybe put better positioning on a product or a better target for marketing, right? That, to me, I think, is the difference. It's not because inherently those people are smarter, or they, it's they have the tools. And whenever we can help our members level that playing field, I think it's important to get the message out. And one of the things you talk about, Joe, all the time as we think about AI, and there's no bigger fan. Joe likes it for several reasons. One, it's really nice to him all the time.
Really
So
nice.
he needs that. He loves that. But you're always talking, Joe, that like there's little things you can do along the way as AI is developing, right? Like there's stuff we've done at NEACH brilliantly that, we're going to do some stuff with our AP program, which is brilliant, but it's all going towards that next chapter always of what the next, like Toli was just talking about, what AI could be looking like next. If in 3 years, right, we're at that point he's talking about, if you haven't been doing the little steps along the way, that's going to feel like going in my 91 Toyota Corolla, trying to go up Mount Washington. Like I never earned the sticker that says this car climbed Mount Washington. Yeah, I was going the other way. I had the fastest decline on Mount Washington in the history of motor vehicle. So I think there's an on-ramping that needs to happen. And so it's not, and this is not to do AI just to do AI. This stuff is extremely valuable, but it also allows you to be better positioned. And so I think strategically that's what we've been trying to get across to people. And Joe, you did that session at PMC recently, great event where members got to hear like, it's not this big overwhelming thing that you can't take advantage of it. Some of the AI conversations, I was joking, Toli. I took a course that I went through and it was a great course. I got this AI certificate. But like when I was signing up, I specifically asked a lady, like, is there coding in this course? And she's like, oh no. And I'm swearing in my office week 5, they got me doing a project about revitalizing the prison system and I'm coding AI. And I'm like, no, I just wanted to learn a little bit about AI and how you could use it strategically. So we all know how people feel overwhelmed, but there's simple steps along.
People are not using AI. If you're coding AI, you're at the 0.04% of users right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand.
You don't need to be a coder. You just need to understand what's out there and make it fit.
Sean, in regard to your CEO at the bank saying we need bench strength and you were going to grow that along the way, something I've realized lately, and I realized it just yesterday, I listened to a YouTuber and talking about AI, and literally she said, well, I was just going to outperform by doing it more often than not. In my career, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, Anthony Robbins was saying, well, I was just going to be a better presenter because I was going to present every day where everyone else was presenting once a week. From an insight perspective, so you're building that bench strength, the person's coming up. This solution seems very much like here's the shortcut to all that time, because you could make decisions all along your 2-year, 1-year orientation, building that bench. You can make decisions along the way, realizing at the end, oh, we should have made this decision back here. Do you see that? I mean, is that a real thing or am I making that up?
No, I mean, remember when we used to bring on people at NEACH and we'd be like, we had that same mindset. Hey, if they just present more, right? All that happens when you present more is you get more comfortable presenting. It doesn't mean you know the information any better. It just means you get those fears become, even now we still do it. I probably get 10 seconds of nervousness before I speak. When I first started, it was like a minute and a half, I'd be freaking out, right? And everybody goes through that, right? The key with what you're talking about, I think, at these decisioning points is that you can use and leverage the tool so that it's not just a decision at this point. You put the factors in and say, if I do this now, what is it 3 years from now? How does this affect us? Because that, we see that even at a small company like NEACH, every little decision I make here or you make 8 months or 12 months from now, we have to go back and say, oh, wow, because we did this, we're now at this point. And sometimes that's good, and sometimes we get it wrong, and that happens. But just being able to, it's not just doing it more to get better. It's actually every time you're doing it, it's like Dwight Evans, former Red Sox player, used to say, practicing perfect makes perfect, not just practicing. And I think that's what this allows you to do, is you're not just making decisions to get in the habit of making decisions. You're actually getting in the habit of making good decisions based upon data. And then the more and more that you do that, your decisions are going to become more and more defendable and bulletproof and all of that things. And so I think just doing things, that used to be that old, we've had trainers here that haven't worked out. We had people go stone cold white on stage. We've had, we've had it all in our time, and that we were just wrong about that. Like, oh no, just do more webinars, you're going to get better. And it was really what makes you better, like you and I as presenters, is we know the stuff cold in and out. There's not a question someone in the audience is going to say that's going to throw you off on a webinar and so I think there's that different thing in this podcast, this YouTuber you're talking about, like just using AI, and I'm just going to use it more than everybody. I think they're going to run into the same challenge. If you're not using it for a purpose, or if you're not, it's just going to be something you do and you're going to tell people you're doing it, but you're not really effective. And, Toli, you're more of a tech person. You like to beat stuff up. And, what's your thoughts on this whole just use AI to use it and I'm going to get better?
I think you hit it on the point, right? I think that's kind of a Predium's tagline, right? Not only do we allow you to increase your decision velocity, but we allow you to make fast decision at a smarter rate. right? And that the ability to make smarter decisions comes back from our scenario modeling, right? It allows you to say, test out certain scenarios without having to risk any type of capital, any type of investment into it, right? And that allows you to be more confident when you walk in an outcome meeting, right? Knowing that the decision you make knows exactly how that's going to impact your capital ratios, your liquidity ratios. And that's where I think Predium does. And I agree with you, right? Just making fast decision is not going to help you, right? Making fast, smart decision is the key thing. And with Predium, because of the scenario modeling tool that we have, it gives people a lot of confidence that saying, hey, you know what? I feel really good about the decision because I modeled this thing out 100 different ways, right? Based on my expertise. And so I feel confident the decision I'm going to make, I know what the potential outcome will be.
Excellent. We'll give you the last word. Anything in parting?
Yeah, I think we are a tool that, I think we kind of talk about it. It's a tool that really level the playing field. I think, community banks are really struggling and under pressure from lower profitability, losing key talent. Predium level that playing field. It put us in the same ballpark as the big boys, right? Understand, meaning that we not only do provide you the most advanced technology, but the analytical infrastructure to allow you to assess the data that's coming in. And, it immediately, I think, solve a huge gap in the banking world right now, which is both like, how do you analyze clean data, get clean data, and how do you analyze it, on this end without spending a significant amount of capital.
Excellent. Well, thank you for joining. Thanks to
thank you, Toli.
Thank you.
WrestleMania.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Have a good
Thanks,
one.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Don't hang.
On behalf of NEACH, your trusted resource in payments, and our guests, I'd like to thank everyone for tuning into the podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode and want to hear more about payments innovation and modernization, you can find the Wrestling Payments Podcast on the podcast page of NEACH.org or wherever you subscribe to podcasts. Just search for Wrestling Payments in your podcast app. Thanks for listening.